All right, you kids, listen up. I'm Mark Hamill, the star of the feature-length film, not a summer blockbuster or an indie darling movie, The Long Walk by Stephen King, the movie adaptation. I'm only in the movie for maybe 8 minutes of screen time, but this was a great check to cash. Well, let's get talking about it. That's my Mark
Well,
Hamill
welcome
impression.
back. Yeah, it was actually not bad. I will say, spoiler alert, I thought he was kind of terrible in this movie, actually.
I didn't
But
want to
we'll
like
get
start
to
on that
that.
note, but I kind of did. But yeah, my
Yeah,
my
he
my
was
feeling
so
was
whack.
he was in it for like I think he probably my guess was on set for 2 days because he's there for like 2 night scenes and 2 day scenes, and that's really
Even
it.
saying
And
9 minutes of screen time, I think, is overselling it. Like, I think if you
there's some
combine
slow mo
that
at the
shit, it's
end.
probably like 2 to 3.
Yeah, it's really minimal, Mark Hamill, but the trailers sell it like he's a driving antagonistic force and not just like a background antagonistic force.
Yeah.
He's not awful, but at the same time, like when I saw him doing his like villainous performance and I was hearing the voice acting of kind of like when he's being like the Joker before, and I was like, oh, this is really good. I'm excited to see Mark Hamill do some new stuff, especially like a different like genre or atmosphere approach, you know. But yeah, it was definitely not the highlight of the film, which I was expecting. But there's other highlights that I'm sure we'll get into.
Yeah, well, before we get into that, welcome back, Mr. 2 weeks off of the pod. We had some guests join us. Ty and Sam came with Adriana and I to go see the Toxic Avenger double feature. Did you get a chance to see that yet, or did you not go?
Instead
Like,
of
not the episode,
seeing
the movie.
Yeah, I listened to the episode, which made me not want to see the movie. But also, no, instead, I ended up seeing Weapons for a second time. I enjoyed it a lot more, to be honest. I also had enough time to digest some of the things that I wasn't fully clicking. Somebody said that a bigger and better theme than Parasites, which I didn't fully agree with. Like it was surface level, whatever, but it's how people deal with control. And as a control freak, I was like, God damn. Because, it's like Miss Gandy has no kids and she needs alcohol to find control. The cop guy, he's kind of like a Nepo hire. So his police chief dad-in-law really demeans him. Then his wife is kind of like always trying to nag him to be a better man. Control being, fought for there and not given. And then my big thing was Archer had no vices and no like real thing. His whole thing, was the fact that he lost control of something, his son, that he always had a lot of control on. So the control element, junkie guys out of control. Gladys literally puts kids into mind control. Like, so I mean, like the
Hmm.
movie's better framed as a device to talk about how people deal with control or taking control. Like Alex follows rules. He's a good boy, cleans his room, he does his chores, all that stuff. But he has to break the rules to go into that, cross the salt line and get the wand in the end. So yeah, I spent the last 2 weeks off learning to like a movie I didn't love that much, and seeing no new movies because I didn't have to talk about them until we saw The Long Walk. So that's the movie update.
Yeah, I definitely think that was like, yeah, if you missed our Toxic Avenger episode, I think all of us were pretty in the same boat on that being, unfortunately, very skippable. And I think that's kind of played out in the kind of outcome of that for it theatrically. Like, it never had a huge buzzy word of mouth. It was so shocking. Like, I was baffled by that now, like looking back at it, and that couldn't get released. So someday I'm sure you'll come across it and throw it on like you do when you're busy putting something on in the background while you're crocheting or whatever it is you
Hold
do
on
at
a
home.
minute. Shay Angus, what happened to you? Are you body snatcher? Did you just tell me to wait for it to come out on streaming and
No,
enjoy a
I said that
movie
you
in the
will
background?
do that way inevitably
Oh,
because
okay.
that's just how you're wired.
Yeah,
I would never do
exactly.
such a thing.
Dude,
I get irritated when like Ashley and I are I'm rewatching, she's watching for the first time, but Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, and like when she's like looks away to pet the dog, I'll bump her. I get mad about it. I'm like, watch the goddamn show. And
second
then there's
counts.
been moments, not to I'm calling her out on the pod and she's got no way to defend herself. But straight up so we finished Breaking Bad, we're on Better Call Saul now, and there's a lot of characters and callbacks and obviously and things like that. And we just crossed an episode where Ken is his name, is a very minor role in Breaking Bad. But if you've seen Breaking Bad, right?
Oh
I'm
yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
sorry about yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it changed my
But
life
you
when I hit
remember the
streaming.
remember the douchebag guy with the Bluetooth piece in his ear that
Yeah.
blows up his car? So he's in Better Call Saul in the scene, and I was kind of like, as soon as he popped up on screen, I was doing one of these, like, does she know? Does she recognize this guy? And then that was the night when they do the scam to make him pay for the Zafiro and Yeho, and which is the bottle that Gus uses in Breaking Bad to kill the cartel. And she said nothing through the whole bit. So then I was like, really? You didn't notice either of that? Maybe if you paid more attention instead of petting the dog when we're watching the show. And I was coming down on her hard about it. So yeah, you can imagine if that's what I'm like with a captive audience. The whole idea of doing this while you're washing dishes or cooking or something else around the house is
Not being able to commit to memory niche character actors from TV shows. I get it. I
Well,
don't disagree.
the Ken one got me, and I know again it's unfair for me because by the time Better Call Saul came out, I'd probably seen Breaking Bad start to finish 5 times. I watched it with my dad and showed it to tons of people, and everything. So fair enough. I guess I have more awareness, but I was like, that was such a iconic bit, and that guy plays such a great douchebag character that you're like, oh, I'm so glad to watch his car blow up. But anyway, not to get too sidetracked in it, but yes,
Actually,
no, I
to get
think
more sidetracked, feel
okay,
free to
let's go,
cut
let's
this.
go.
Feel free to cut this. So I'm sure you, like me, have had a rough week with social media and wanting to get away from it all. So talking me having time off, I went to the college for the last 2 days to take time off. I barely use my phone, turn all notifications off to silence, which I never do. And after a couple really healing days, we're at the cottage and we're like, oh, what movie should we watch? And sure enough, the movie that we picked, a cottage movie, another subject section of movies hit different when, like airplane movies or movies at your friend's house at 4 a.m. Cottage movie. We put on the Manchurian Candidate, which I'd never seen before, and that
Isn't that
have you?
old-ish?
It's yeah, it's like a political thriller.
Yeah, yeah. But
Yeah,
what
Denzel
year did that
Washington,
come
Lee
out?
Schreiber. I think it's late '90s, early 2001, maybe early 2000s. I'm guessing. But that movie
2004.
involves political figures being mind controlled and people being mind controlled and the government covering up assassinations. And so I was like, God damn, I just got over that.
Even when
So
you
yeah.
unplug, you plug back in, eh?
Yeah, but it was a pretty good movie. It felt like of the era, and Lee Schreiber is actually pretty good in it, and obviously Denzel Washington. But yeah, watching Manchurian Candidate this week was probably a little bit too much. So when we went to go see The Long Walk, I was like, oh, this is great. I mean, there's a lot of really graphic kills in this movie,
Mm.
and yeah, I saw it the day after, but yeah, it's
I just quick before we dive into that, I just got to give a lot of love to Liev Schreiber. I'm actually a huge Liev Schreiber stan.
hmm.
I really liked him in that Wolverine movie, that
Oh yeah,
terrible
he was
Wolverine
Sabretooth.
movie. Yeah, but I loved him as that movie, and that was really the first role I remember him in. And he was also in Caught Stealing and was phenomenal in that too. So anyway, shout out Liev Schreiber.
Yeah, there's a really good Lee Schreiber TV show on Netflix. It's about a perfect family that's super wealthy, lives in the Hamptons, and he's the ultimate DILF. And honestly, I don't even need to talk about the show because that's kind of what I was there for. I was like, it's good to see little Schreiber, like the rapper Lee Schreiber, aging gracefully, man. Yeah, the guy's a silver fox in that show because I always think of him as a 2000s kind of sharp, piercing character, but he's got more of a Pierce Brosnan vibe now that he's kind of in that category that Pierce Brosnan was a decade ago.
Well, you'll have to see him in Caught Stealing because he plays one of the Hasidic Jews that are gangster guys. So he's really in the full outfit, and it's a really great bit. Anyway, it was definitely put that movie on your radar because it's one Adriana and I both liked a lot. But yeah, so diving into The Long Walk. I'm gonna preface this, and then we'll do my setup and my spoiler free thoughts before we dive right in. But I saw a trailer for this however long ago in front of some other movie, and I was very excited when I saw like the initial like, oh, it's who's in it. Big Cooper Hoffman guy. And I meant to look up his name before we started, but the dude from Alien
Yeah,
that you
buddy.
and I
Yeah.
really liked. He was the only part that I liked about that movie. We'll get to that later, but so I was kind of intrigued by that. But as that trailer went, I'm like, this looks dumb as shit. Like I couldn't get over how stupid the movie felt and just looked in this trailer. And so, but I was kind of surprised by the cast. I'm like, well, these like, it's, not that I'm sure Cooper Hoffman's, batting every job off possible, but like credible people in the movie. So I was like, all right. And then when it screened probably a few weeks ago now, there was a lot of buzz coming from it. And I was like, oh shit, okay. Well, so I went in, and overall, I really, really liked this movie. I gave it just into it's the lower end of my love rating. I wanted the ending to hit a little harder, but the movie hits pretty consistently, like emotionally throughout. It's there's some pretty solid moments in there. I just wish it kind of felt a little bit more satisfying, but ultimately, yeah, I think this is definitely a movie worth your time. If you have seen the trailer and thought like I did, don't let that deter you. I really think it is a great movie, frankly, and with two of my favorite performances. With honestly, like three, like there was a lot of great performances in this too,
Yeah, all the
and then the
walkers
terrible
were
one we
like
talked about.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
and even
and
then
so
the terrible one I would say was just like not like it
he
just
literally, yeah,
compared to the
it
rest.
doesn't detract to the movie because he is genuinely like he's really mostly there at the end for the very ending, but then he just pops up to go, ah, they are maggots, and then like moves on. So like it's very quick, and so like it doesn't distract. You spend so much time with the walkers,
Yeah. And they're the really
and
heart and soul, and like, they
yeah,
pose a lot of good questions. I got such big like Stand By Me vibes a little bit. Like
mm-hmm,
not to the same degree, but I mean, it's a bunch of these young men that all have their own issues. They're all forced together, and they're going on like a long journey together where they get to learn the value of friendship. But unlike that movie, there's some dire consequences. They get a ticket. That's all they get, right? Yeah. Did
yeah,
you hate that part where
get
they're
your
like, you're going
ticket
to get your
out, dude.
ticket? And the trailers didn't shy away from that, but that first 20 minutes are like, one kid's writing a book about the experience, and I was like,
Uh-huh.
oh, so when you get your ticket, you just you what, you go to like you go to like jail, like what happens? And then I remember the trailers, it is a gore fest. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I didn't letterbox it yet because I actually want to talk about it, because there's parts of this movie that I was like, this is actually like pretty excellent, and like performances again very solid, some good cinematography. I got like vertigo from one of the shots where they pan down looking, or they tilt down looking at the feet walking. I was
Uh-huh.
like, oh my God. And I was like, I was the person in my audience, sold out theater, 20 people of 200, absolutely packed. I was the one guy that kept going, oh, every time they showed like the miles increasing. Um, Not to derail the overall thoughts, but my girlfriend and I were talking about how we really wanted to see, and I want to get into this specifically about missed opportunities and stuff like that. But Lionsgate did showings of this when it launched to have people on a treadmill for the entire runtime, 1 hour and 48 minutes. And if you stop the walk at any point, you can't finish the movie. And I thought, what a sweet hook, because I would purely stay walking because I would want to finish it. I would be so much more invested. So her and I were talking about like, okay, well, if we go to the gym on like a Wednesday, and we find like a 2 hour podcast or something, like something similar, and then we like time it out, we could say we did the long walk challenge before the long walk. And I was like invested. And then, as I said, I got on the weather, and I was like, what's the point for me to post like an Instagram reel to Screen Love Affair for like 20 likes to be like, wow, this fat ass walked for 1 hour and 48 minutes at speed 3. So yeah, I think it's a missed opportunity that Cineplex, because it's also a Cineplex movie. Lionsgate and Cineplex have a
Uh-huh.
thing. So they're partnered up for distribution, like a production company. And Cineplex had no efforts in Canada to do anything thematic to the launch of The Long Walk. And all I could think is like they could have partnered with like Good Life, Canada's biggest gym, and then had like many studios playing a version of this movie in some sort of like, I'm sure gym rats would have spent $50 to say they did the long walk challenge and saw the movie a day early or whatever. You know what I mean? Missed
Yeah.
opportunity because I know there's nut jobs out there. Maybe not you. I was gonna be, but then I came to my senses. Um, but yeah, overall thoughts. A lot of parts in this movie I really did find phenomenal. And then there's a handful of parts in it, even from like a story perspective or like what they were showing me, I was kind of like rolling my eyes a little bit or wanting more payoff in some aspects. Like, um, I'm not sure if you
So do you
felt that
think this
way,
is a case of I liked this more than you probably?
that you liked it more than me.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I was
Like I
really
gave it
strong
a
on it.
4 on mine. I gave it
So
a
I was
4.
teetering between
Almost
a
four and a
3 and a
half.
4, and I think I'm going to say land
Okay.
around a 3.5.
Okay.
Mostly
All right.
because, without going on another tangent, I just don't think it has rewatchability. Like I rewatched Weapons in my time off, and I don't think I could go back and watch this movie in a theater or even watching it at home, like in the next 6 months. Not because it's a bad movie, but when you know where it goes, there's no like surprises along the way that really change your feelings on how it went. And it's also it's kind of a dour movie, and I like that, but it's like
Yeah.
the enjoyment of it after watching it the first time and following that journey, like the characters in the movie, you don't want to go on that long walk again. So I think I'm not giving it like a 4 or higher rating, not for like all the nitpicks I might bring up later, but just because I don't think it has necessarily great rewatchability. And it's not a movie I could recommend to everybody being like, this is amazing. I think it's a good movie I could recommend like Stephen King fans or Hunger Games fans, maybe. But it's not something that I think I like. Weapons, I've recommended to everybody, even though I didn't love it. And when I went back to it, I had a fun time watching it with a new person. But Long Walk, I don't think I could put that on for my mom and be like, "Isn't this great?" So I don't know. Maybe that's just me though.
Yeah. Well, we'll dig into it, I guess. So, I'm curious. Well, I mean, we'll talk about a lot here, but let's kick off with where you like. What were some of your problems with it then? Because yeah, I was considering like 4 or higher.
Or
That was
higher.
where I was at. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
It's tricky because I would say like, and again, like I do like the movie. Like I think it was well done.
spoilers, so you can
Spoil.
dig into things
Okay,
at
full
this point.
spoilers. Tune in now if you don't care about the long walk. Um, yeah, I think like small nitpicks, like like again, let's talk about performances real quick. I really liked all the actors, all the kids. The mom who drops him off, and she's in like 2 scenes, gut
Judy
wrenching.
Greer.
Judy Greer, yeah, she was solid for the little screen time she had. Compared to her, Mark Hamill having the same amount of screen time, Judy Greer is like given a little bit more to and Mark Hamill's whole character is just being like a figurehead. But I mean, I don't know. I would have loved more close-ups on him, fucking really chewing the scenery or overacting because he's kind of always at like a medium shot saying some rhetoric or just doing the "I'm Mark Hamill" bit. Like, and for the viewers at home, I'm going to take this off because I'm swaying to death, but I'm trying to look like Mark Hamill as the general, the major. Sorry, but yeah, I guess yeah. Nitpicks wise, I think like given the material that it is, where it's walk or die, and it's a never-ending walking movie to the point where like there's no rules where it's like, okay, after 18 hours you get a half-hour respite. Like it's walk or die. People fall asleep walking, which I thought was like really funny and interesting, and you like that does happen. It's like a like a trauma response basically. Like my leg cramped up in the theater watching it. Like I was successfully being elicited a lot of emotions and stress. Like I was emoting well in the movie. Yeah, nitpicks wise, I just think for like a narrative structure and a story, it's kind of tough because there's moments where if you're like a big movie head or somebody who's spent time thinking about screenwriting for even 10 minutes, you start having those moments where characters say something to get exposition out, and it feels natural, like like for the most part. But like, there's times where I felt like it was like a little bit on the nose, or like, um, and it's like, hey, tell me about that scar. And I'm like, he's going to tell him about that scar when he's about to die for the third time, I bet. And sure enough, like, yeah, he tells him about the scar when he's about to, find his mom in that town and get held up. And the baseball comes out, they start playing, he talks about his dad, who we don't hear about. Like I felt some of the emotional moments that were flashback oriented um, were kind of like a little bit like they're trying a little too hard. And especially because I did feel like I didn't get a ton of world building, which sometimes I would praise for it being like, vague and intriguing. But here I felt like I needed either a little bit more or a little bit less. Okay, no flashbacks, or give me a little bit more off the top, or like in visually. Don't just tell me like, Big fan of the movie Equilibrium, and like, yeah, to know his dad was a sense offender, enjoying music and art and sharing it with his kids, and choosing to die and abandon his family than to live without art or whatever. Like, and again, in that scene, he's in a raincoat like this, the general or the major shooting his dad. There's just those moments where I felt like they were hyper dramatic compared to the really somber and excellent, like, walking and conversation scenes being had. That when those kind of came, they didn't linger long, but I just was kind of like, I could feel kind of where the attention to detail was being put in and where the efforts were. And it felt a little bit like a Jigsaw movie, like when you watch Saw, and at the end they do a hypercut to like what you didn't know, and it was just like very cheaply done. I don't know. I'm being really negative, but I swear I like the movie.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm surprised because I guess for my viewing experience, like I definitely wasn't thrown off by any of that because I think to the movie's credit, it spreads it out like
oh
throughout
yeah, it does.
the duration. So it's not like, oh, as we get close to the end, now we have these two big flashback scenes about the characters. And really, I think all of that, I think, worked pretty well. Like, it's really tough to convey, and I think the actors could convey a lot of that information, and I think they did. But, like, for example, the flashback scene with Cooper Hoffman's dad, which, by the way, slight tangent around that. Listening to Cooper Hoffman talk about like idolizing his dad and like I couldn't separate the real situation. And so like I mean like it wasn't like the movie was him talking about his dad, but it really like it just connected with me, I feel like, and his part in particular even more because I couldn't really separate those moments and listening to Cooper Hoffman opine about his dad. And like I said, I think I don't we weren't doing the pod at the time, but there was a moment in Saturday Night that he was also in where he delivers a line and just does like a hand motion and a point with his hand. And I remember watching it in the theaters and I got chills because I was like, holy Jesus, that just like it hit me like, oh my God, that he is his father's son. Yeah, so I think, but as it relates to that, is I think it is very crucial to have at least the scene with his dad because it explains so much and it gives you a like kind of a visual, like it shows you what happened as opposed to telling it, which I think makes the ending, not the very end but like sort of the bit before the very end, really a lot more impactful. And like, yeah, I guess for me, it just didn't throw me off as much. And I felt like they were short and organic enough that it didn't kind of surprise me. On the world building side, I think I definitely think it conveys quite a lot with a little in terms of like again just the desolate condition of the state and how long they walk and all the places you see, and we only just get into civilization as this thing really starts to conclude, and we barely get a taste of that. And I think for all intents and purposes and for the purposes of the narrative of the movie, like I think so much of that was kind of implied, like even that opening scene, and me and Adriana both said this afterwards, but when they have the crawl to kind of explain the invitation, you've been accepted and all of this, I was like, holy shit, it's the school duel. And I laughed really hard
Yeah,
because I was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, Brandon's gonna get a kick out of
Dude,
that.
yeah. Well, there was no director to give me a head nod in the lineup on the way in, so I couldn't say. I was gonna say I think this director also did some Hunger Games, so I was gonna say what's with
Yeah.
this specific director that loves dystopic, middle America youth dying for clout or whatever the theme of Hunger Games is. I don't give a shit. So,
Yeah, I've
but yeah,
never
no,
actually watched them or read them, so
no, I think the Owen Sound Galaxy, I did a like Dusk Till Dawn screening kind of thing where they play all of them for the last one. Again, I think it was like the one girl from high school that was like the girl in the group of guy friends was like, we should do that. So we did that for like Twilight and that was my first only exposure. And it was like midnight
uh,
screenings, so it was like a better time because it was like people who were really into it or really against it going with their friends, and then so you'd hear people booing or being like, "Oh my god, yeah." So, anyways, that was a side tangent, but yeah, no, it's weird because we're talking about the flashbacks and how for me I felt like they were the weaker point of the movie. Again, they weren't bad, they didn't linger, but I think for the first time ever watching a movie, because the performances were so good, I would have rather the characters just tell me about it and not flashback. Normally, they always say show don't tell, but in this movie, because I was so in love with the way the characters like grew on each other and related and conversed, like I almost would have just rather stay in those moments with those characters as they talk about something and they elicit the emotion that they were making me elicit for the whole film. Like I had so much more empathy for these characters. Um, I should look up the guy's name again, but the guy from Alien, Romulus, was so strong. He was the
David
character that
Jonsson, I just looked it up.
yeah, David Jonsson, I think, is the character. Almost like, so funny enough, you talked about School Duel. That's how we got sidetracked. But I was getting School Duel vibes, but I was also getting um, It Ends vibes a little bit because there was a character I could really latch onto on what feels like a never-ending journey in the middle of like nowhere. And David Johnson's character was the one that I think I resonated the most with in the whole film. Like the fact that he was, able to like really be assertive, but also create kind of a community. He was, wasn't a wimp. And when he finally talks about his thing about like how he's always just been kind of moving forward, always kind of walking forward and not looking back. Like if you related to the Cooper character, from that, like my version was, yeah, like I feel like I've found home with like my friendships and relationships far more. Cause yeah, like, I left Owen Sound. Even next weekend, I'm not going to be there because my mom remarried 3 hours away. My house burned down like ages ago. So, moving forward in life, I've just been able to make good connections in terrible situations, be bad workplaces or whatever. And having that kind of dynamic explored of like guys who have no reason to be friends because of the nature of society and the long walk, find the camaraderie that is just like so beautiful. And so like that part of the movie for me was so strong that I would have preferred for the first time ever, and I maybe the last time I say this, I rather the actors have just told me about it instead of showing it, because I believed them and I held their dynamics and their banter with such reverence when watching how it all unfolded. I like that it did feel like a movie that was um grueling time. Like it was, when like I said, when they go from 5 miles, by the way, 5 miles is the challenge. Speed 3 at an hour and 48 minutes is about 5 miles. So when they get to 5 miles, I like was like, oh hey, we would have done the challenge by 25 minutes in the movie. And then they make it to like 300 miles. It's like my right knee when I stood up hurt, and I was doing a lot of labor that day, but I was like, is that psychosomatic? So yeah, again, like I know I started with my nitpicks, but genuinely I think the character acting and a lot of the dialogue was incredibly engaging, and I felt so much even just the outrage, like this has been a rough week, but like yeah, when the characters would get so mad they just start screaming or run off and die. Like, there was so many moments where I get it. Like, I was going to make a joke like, how many miles would you and I last? And I 100% said that hill that called like 18 of them the first night, no matter how physically mentally tuned I could be for that, that's it. Like that was like 50 miles, a hill at night while you're sleeping. Basically half the characters wake up to stumble and trip. Like, yeah, I would not be making it past that, like the first 10 maybe. But yeah, I don't think I have it in me. And I go to the gym like twice a week. I'm on my feet all day. Like I'm no slouch, but goddamn, I hate cardio in this movie. Even with best friends, like the characters that are formed in this, I would have had a real hard time. I probably would have tried to push somebody forward just so I die first. Be like, oh, thank God it's over. But I'm also the best guy here. See you later. So yeah,
I
I loved
confidently
it.
will state that I would have been the first one to die if I were to do the long walk without question.
Would you have been shot in the stomach
And
for trying to prove your point that you're tired of walking, or
oh, I
would
would have taken somebody with me though. I would have definitely, that's more my spiritual energy. Like, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, you'd have been like,
But
here
I
with
also
that.
like to think like as desolate and desperate as I am, maybe in that world I'd be a little leaner and in better shape so I could actually handle it better. But
Yeah, I'm sitting
but
here being like, I was trying
yeah,
to do
no.
the long walk challenge and do five miles before watching the movie, and you're out here actually making progress, eating only potatoes and water, losing like what 20 pounds since I last saw you. So
So
yeah,
far,
probably more
dude.
credit to
Yeah.
you than me this time around. But yeah, man.
Oh yeah, but if I had to do the long walk now, I would have been better off 2 weeks ago than right now, dude. I'm not
Dude,
feeling.
how pissed
I'm
would you be?
feeling
You
a
gotta get one of
little.
those ration tubes, and it's like potato paste. Because the one guy was like, "I can't eat the carrot paste. I'm
Oh,
allergic or whatever," and you're like, "I'm
dude,
allergic
if
too, dude."
I made a joke because my algorithm has only been feeding me just foods and shit too, so it's like
Oh,
triple
I thought you were
whammy.
gonna say
I have
political
so many
violence.
restaurants. Oh, no, no, no. Well, that too, but I have so many saved places now in Google Maps for food I want to have when I'm done this. But
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, no, I think for me, like, again, those moments are so minor. And what I liked most about it, that I think, and like it speaks to, I think, what you like too, was they show what happened with the dad. And that's obviously the big kind of the biggest incident that permeates sort of throughout the movie, with Cooper Hoffman's motivations and ultimately the ending. But what I really liked was the way they talked about it. Like, so it really does just show us that it happened, and then in kind of like obviously understandable ways, like Cooper Hoffman holds his dad up as this hero, and you know, brave, and admires him and all of that kind of thing. And his motivation, as he reveals, you know, we're in the spoiler section, is to kill the general, Mark Hamill's character,
to
because he's
avenge
the
his
one that killed
father.
his dad. And so throughout that, like, I think all of that makes like the rest of it so much more tragic. And um it's the conversation ultimately that Cooper Hoffman and David Jonsson have towards the end, where David Jonsson talks about like just how he sees the world, and Cooper realizes that he's just like, he can't look past this. He sees it differently. And you know, and kind of like, I wouldn't necessarily go as far as to say like his whole worldview is nihilistic, but this situation so specifically encompasses his life. And so it, you know, it feels like his world is nihilistic, I guess, because of that. And ultimately, I think that's what makes that sort of sacrifice at the end. Because I won't lie, like, as it approached, and again, they become the final two, I had no idea
Yeah,
exactly how this was gonna go.
that's what I was talking about, the
Um,
walking challenge, because to find that out, when you, as a good viewer, you kind
yeah.
of know there's maybe four people who might make it, depending on the movie's variety taste, you know. But that was the driving reason to stick through and pay attention, because yeah, I like you, yeah, completely from a narrative point, you don't know. And in my case, not to step on what you're saying, but I assumed it was going to be Coop or whatever. I assumed it was going to be him, because he had a character arc that sounded like he learned about love and he learned about acceptance. He learned that he was worse than his dad or as bad for choosing this path of righteousness and leaving behind his mother who he loves so dearly. And he starts off nihilistic and optimistic, kind of contrastingly, but by the end, it's almost like he realizes like his folly was, you know, not being able to appreciate his mother and not being there for her. And like I really thought that that was going to be the strongest arc of the characters, was that, you know, he went in selfishly, didn't, you know, he wasn't there for the clout or anything. He went in for vengeance, and he's a good guy. Like he never comes off as like a nihilistic asshole, other than those moments when
No.
he's with the guy from Alien Romulus, and he's saying like, "Oh, that family, they're those sick fucks." You know, he's like, "No, man, like that's beautiful." Like, why? And they dig into it, but I really thought that was going to be the ending, was him, you know, taking those words and being the bigger man and understanding more about the world and life and himself. It didn't go that route. In fact, it almost felt like a regressive arc, and I think that's kind of why I was not not sure if I loved it, because it does end on a darker note, which is I think what you're getting at. But yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to take the conch, but that, yeah,
No, no, no.
I was
Yeah,
really
that,
feeling
I
that.
think the ending is something that like you know, we're recording this on a Sunday night. I saw this Friday afternoon, and the ending is still something I'm like kind of mulling, because yeah, it does feel like, I mean, again, the whole movie is very bleak and shitty. Also literally shitty. There's a few moments, because
Which
yeah,
I
they
loved, by
don't
the
get
way.
they
They didn't
yeah, yeah,
shy
yeah,
away
because
from that. We were all
they
thinking it.
don't get shit breaks. They have to shit on the move. They have to piss on the move.
Continuity wise too, when the guy says like I shit like once a week and they're eating paste, I never was like, why
Yeah,
didn't Coop have to shit? Like, well, because it's been
yeah.
4 days of walking. But the daily shitter guy was the one that was struggling, and
Yeah,
Yeah, and like
yeah.
how they do call attention. Like, look at that guy. He's lost the will to live. He's pissed his pants. He's shuffling. Like, you feel so bad. Like that would be me
Oh, dude.
3 hours in, dude. Like, yeah.
I'm
So
so spoiled now. If I shit at a place and I don't have access to a bidet, I feel disgusting. So I don't know how I've made it through my whole life, and
which
I
is a great
definitely
way to
wouldn't
work in our
last. The
sponsor of
first
this
shit on the
episode,
long
Tushy.
walk, if I made it that far, would be the one that killed me out. Yeah.
Oh, you and me both for
I
sure.
need
I
my
don't think I have
canteen.
that.
I'd be dumping my canteen and washing my
Oh,
ass
hey,
as I went, dude.
that's smart because I had that thought, and like
Yeah,
they
no
joke
one
about
thought of
it.
that, eh?
They joke about that where they're like, "Hey man, you mind breaking off for the next 50 miles or so
Yeah.
to kind of smell your shit?" And they're like, "Haha, no problem, man," because like yeah, obviously they've been living with that for a day or two. But
Yeah, it'd be pretty gnarly. But yeah, like to go back to the ending, like yeah, I'm kind of torn on it. Like I said, I want to really think more about even ultimately like what it was going for and the themes, because like, as my at least initial read on it was like Cooper Hoffman makes this sacrifice because he's like, you see the world in a more beautiful way than I do. This is like better that you go than I go. But then yeah, like his grief and his pain, he does exactly what Cooper Hoffman said he was going to do. He wishes for the carbine and he shoots Mark Hamill and kills him. Um, and the consequences of that, like, it was a very weird, like,
we don't even
did
know if
they
he did
just,
it. Yeah.
well, like, I assume he did, but I assume they killed him right after.
Well,
And
did you
then,
notice
like, what we
how?
see is his brain just kind of,
Well, did you notice how like as soon as that moment begins and happens, that crowd of people and fireworks disappear? It's almost like there's that creative choice where it's like it feels like a dream all of a sudden. Is that thematic or yeah, did the logical thing happen that he pulled the gun and he shot and he lived out that final moment of what he could do for his friend and walk off into the empty street that was crowded like moments prior. The emptiness of the street to me felt like a very cheeky, ambiguous like
well, no, no, no.
hint. And I
So to split it though is I think, like, again, my initial read, I don't have a
but people
better,
cleared
more
out from
thought
the
out
shooting
bit,
maybe,
but
but
my initial read is that he kills Mark Hamill. No, 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 no. He killed Mark Hamill because there was people behind Mark Hamill. You could see that. He
tons.
kills those people, like he kills Mark Hamill, and then I'm assuming they immediately shoot him, but it's like kind of like how your brain is alive for
Yeah.
7 minutes after. So like the him walking off, because he just turns around. So if I remember correctly, there was no people behind him. The people were behind Mark Hamill. And so my assumption, like I don't think he just walked into the nothingness. I think he was probably immediately killed.
Yeah, and walking
And
off was like
then like
symbolic.
him walking
Yeah.
off is like his brain just, yeah, that's what happened and he's dead. But
The last thing
that's
up
not
there, his
even as
brain was
big of the
probably
point.
50
The
cal.
bigger point for me is yeah, exactly. Was like the choice from Cooper Hoffman. And it like I didn't like the choice for his character. At least again in my initial hit, because it was like, yeah, like he recognized, like the problem with his decision, with his worldview. Would he put his mom through by doing this for that reason? And he comes to terms with all that, but ultimately still, takes like, deprives his mom, like he dies and gives
Yeah.
himself up. And but like the tour, like I understand, and again, it's like a nuanced thing. It's not just like objective, this was right and this was wrong, this was good, this was bad. Because arguably I think like David Johnson's character, like, yes, he knows what he did, but like, no, it's not just that. That's not the only calculation. David Johnson's character and him are so close by the end of this that, like, it almost is in line with that worldview, that new worldview that he has to sacrifice himself for his friend,
Okay, but hear me
because his
out.
friend is kind of better off that way.
My issue with that take, and again, like I love the movie a lot, but again, when we're talking about the nitpicks, is I think it's probably a little bit more hinging on this final choice of who got the longest walk, winner, and Coop makes that sacrifice because he's under the mind that the David Johnson's character is a better man who deserves to have his day and make the world a better place. And then I get the in the moment rationality, that anger, and that, that almost like that Sith level dark side pivot. Um, but in a way, I feel like that betrays Coop, because I feel like we saw his, mental gears turning and wanting, and understanding the beautifulness of life through, David Johnson's eyes. So, when he wins and he chooses vengeance over love, which was his message the whole time, it's a betrayal to his character and Coop, who he effectively had endeared enough, to have that moment of like, I will give it to the better man, the person who wants a better world more than me and my clouded judgment. And then the clouded judgment transfers to him, you know what I mean? So there's a layer here where it's like, I don't need a super happy feel good ending, but I didn't feel any payoff for Mark Hamill dying at all. Like, I didn't feel like that was a good enough one. And then the fact of the matter being like, if you gave your life for me, and it was under the assumption that it was that I was going to make the world a better place, and I then turned my back on my belief system because I was so angry. I feel like, if David Johnson did live and we get a sequel and he gets to show up, unless he's like, yeah, that was a stupid choice. I betrayed my own values and my dearest friend's wishes of making, siding with love over hate. Because and obviously I'm not saying I want a sequel, but you know what I'm saying? Like, does that not also kind of feel
No,
like it's a
but
regressive message to me?
well, sure, but like that's probably the point. Like that's what I'm kind of getting at, I guess. Like I don't see those like honestly, I feel like I don't see what you just said as conflicting with what I said before. I think for me, like that's part of like this oppressive world as well as like these kind of baser instincts. Like it's not uh, you know, it is a mixed thing that he does at the end for sure because he's like you can go on and do good and whatever, and ultimately what he does is pay off like Cooper Hoffman's base desire, and I think like at that point, yeah, like it's not a happy ending, but this movie also never indicates that that's what this was going to be either because I think like even again David Johnson's kind of like more optimistic and positive worldview that permeates, but like the movie Cooper Hoffman is our main character and the movie makes expressly clear that his motivation is revenge and knowing that like his mom is still around and all of this. And I think like the movie grapples with that really interestingly because they have that conversation about like, well, your dad left, like abandoned you guys to what? To just say fuck the man kind of thing and stick to it. And like it's so funny because that really struck me as such like an interesting bit. And this is such a minor like example of the similar question, but I've just been playing The Witcher 3 again, and there's this stupid minor choice like right near the beginning where this guy helps you get ready for your visit to the emperor, and he's teaching you, he's like, you know how to bow, you have to bow when you meet the emperor and everything like that. And my stubborn ass was like, oh, fuck that, I'm not doing that, so you don't bow. And then that guy's like, like, dude, what happened? I taught you how to do it. What was the problem? And he's like, well, I was like, you're like, I'm fine. He did nothing to me. And he's like, yeah, but he's going to punish me for it. And so it's just kind of that morality of like, yeah, you stuck to your principles, but like, now this guy's getting in shit. And again, it's not the exact same thing, but it's related to the same kind of sense of the topic. And I think like that's what I think kind of mixes me on the ending is that it's also sort of in line with like how those kinds of moments challenge that optimistic worldview. Like he had his life real bad, but if I remember correctly, like his parents died when he was very young and stuff like
In the
that.
ambiguous war, yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So he like there's no memory really. Like I believe he says that too, like he doesn't have memories of his dad or whatnot, or something to that effect. But like happens to him when he's young, and so then this like only life he knows is kind of not great and whatever else. But then this immediately hits him in a way that's significant, and like I don't want to say it's the only significant emotional bit, but like it's clearly one of the most impactful. And it's like, what does that kind of brutality, that ruthlessness, that torture, that sadness do like in that moment? Like if that were me and you, like you,
Oh yeah.
let alone like the bond you make all the way there, you just watch this guy kill this
Well,
dude
especially after walking a
that you were
thousand
so
miles with
close
no
with.
sleep and no like, you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
that. And I excuse a
And
lot of like thought like to that
it
for sure.
definitely, I think, like, yes, it is ultimately, you know, a betrayal, but I think betrayal is actually like more malicious than what that is. Like, you know, because it's like, yes, that is why he sacrificed and what he says, but at the same time, like for this situation and that specific moment to corrupt him so much that it brings him down to that same level. It's kind of recognizing the brutality and the reality of like, again, not that this dude lived a privileged life or anything, but like to see these consequences like laid bare in such an extreme way in the moment, like your emotions take over, and you know that positive world view can be clouded by the misdeeds of other people, right?
I think you summed it up like really well. I was going to try to get a jab in there to be like, well, if you're undecided still, I still know what will help you think that, yeah, he did betray, you know, his character arc and his friend. Cause yeah, he didn't let down just Coop or whatever. Like he didn't just let down his new best friend. Bro, who's gonna give money to Clementine now? They all made that pact to take care of the Asian
Yeah.
guy's wife. You know, there's so much camaraderie, and who's gonna give the Catholic or the Christian cross of the that other character that was like, you know, that was another very endearing moment. You know, if he chose vengeance in that moment for, you know, his friend, which again, you can understand, and it does pose a heavy case. There's a layer as the moviegoer who empathized so greatly with all the characters. That was, you
Yeah.
know, what was the Four Musketeers, you know, that bit? Like the Four
Yeah.
Musketeers, dude, he let them down too. They're, you know, that book's not getting made. The wife's going without the money. If he did shoot the major and die, get shot and, you know, immediately, it was all for naught. It was literally all for naught. And I think, you know, that's probably the part that sits hard with me, because a part of me wanted not like a bow on the end of things, but just this understanding that all those moments and those packs, you could feel good knowing that they were going to be kept and honored. And it did alarm me like greatly to think that, oh yeah, that did feel like a bit of a dream at the end, where he walks off into the night and the people are gone. And, you know, like what you said, your initial read was, yeah, he probably did get shot. And that was like a, you know, symbolic ending, or like what the brain does when you die, you know? So
Yeah.
I think that's probably where my hang up came from. Cause I get the Coop thing, and you honestly explained it great. This is not to relitigate, but I do think for me personally, I was just so invested in the journey with those characters and those moments, that knowing that even their long walk will be for naught because it's just now a bunch of dead kids. And like, it's
But
sad.
okay, but I'm kind of but that's exactly it.
Yeah.
This
It
is the
lists a lot of
kind of
emotion. It's a
movie
good
this
movie for
is,
that.
and it's meant to be like it would be a betrayal of the movie for me, for it to end in a way that, and you know, like not that this is what you exactly outlined, but like it would have been really annoying to me to see him then like go and here's money, Clementine, here's the cross, guy, like, and do all that kind of
No,
shit,
dude,
and it
dude,
become
I
this
just
bit.
wanted a freeze frame where then it just says Clementine got $10,000 cash,
Yeah,
and the cross was
but
given to
all
his
of
old
that
Meemaw.
too
Yeah, no, I'm
would have
kidding.
been in the same vein, because I think like
No, I
for
know
me
totally.
that's,
Yeah,
it's thematic again for like again the world that even that this is happening in, right? Like that all of this is for nothing. Yeah, man, that's right. That is
yeah.
what it is, right?
So
All of this is for nothing.
yeah.
It's literally they do this, right? The whole purpose of the long walk, which we didn't even mention either, is to get a temporary boost in productivity by people watching it. That's what happens. That's what they say. They do this because it gives a temporary boost in
production goes
productivity.
up is what he says in the
Yes,
movie. Part of
slightly.
me,
They say
yeah,
slightly.
and
And so
part
it's like that kind of, so again, like, yes, it sucks, it's bleak, it's shitty, it's sad, but that is kind of true to the world. And like, even when they talk about, like, they don't specify like how many times this has happened, but it's a, regular normalized part
The
of
one
that
kid got an
world.
elephant.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing. And then they say, like, oh, there's limits on the restrictions of your wish and all this kind of shit.
Can't be
And so it's like,
anti-establishment.
no matter what happens, no matter who wins, there's nothing really changes. And Cooper Hoffman's bit, when he frames his wish earlier in the movie before revealing what it is, he says, like, oh, it's to make a difference and maybe like change this and
Maybe
all of
indirectly
that.
it'll
And
change everything.
yeah, and maybe it will, maybe it won't, but this feels like a world where it wouldn't, they would just, okay, plug in the new guy and then now he's the guy in charge of the long walk kind of thing. And I will say too, like, where I said I feel mixed on the ending is the kill. Like, the moment in and of itself just doesn't feel like it doesn't feel strong enough either way. Like, you don't feel that, like, I didn't feel like a triumphant rage. Like, I didn't be like, yes, fuck him. Like some people did. There were people that were annoying, by the way, that were talking behind me, but the fact that they were snappers, they
Oh,
snapped when, as
Slay, you
soon
killed
as
the
yeah, yeah,
major.
yeah,
Slay.
he shot him, and then I heard the
To
snapping behind
to
me.
uh
So
to, to hop in on that exact point, because I that's one of my things too, is I do find like you never see Mark Hamill's eyes in this movie. It could have gone a little harder, more effectively. Like, let's say they shot him, his glasses fell off, and he looked him dead in the eyes for a brief split second to be like, you know, that happened. Like, take a beat, because I would say arguably I was way more jazzed and way more like invested, or like no way, or like, oh, I had that payoff moment when like the burly buff native guy finally snapped and he
yeah,
stole the carbine, shot those two guys, and then ends up doing like his, like death song while they run him
yeah.
over, kind of thing. Like, that was such a better,
Well, doesn't he
similar
shoot
beat.
himself?
Oh, he does shoot him. Yeah, I forgot. Well, they shoot him in
Yeah,
the
he
stomach to
puts
let
the
him bleed
gun
out,
and
and then
yeah.
he does it. And that moment was so much stronger. Like, one of many great strong
Yes.
moments.
For
And
that, yes, exactly. I
that was so
agree.
much stronger than the big bad guy, Mark Hamill, dying. And again, I took the outfit off because it's so hot in here. But the idea is he's almost as agency is the wrong word, because Agent Coulson, who's the guy from the Matrix, the
Mr.
Mr.
Anderson, or
Smith,
wait,
Mr.
no, yeah,
Anderson,
yeah,
Mr.
Mr.
Anderson.
Smith, yeah, Mr.
He
Anderson's Neo, Mr.
Neo,
Anderson's
yeah. So
Neo,
he's like the Agent
yeah,
Smith from the Matrix. Like, he's glasses. You never really see his emotions. He says words. He's always in a big, black military outfit of some sort. He's very faceless. And again, that's probably intentional to represent the system, that he is the closest thing to like a figure of prominence to point at and laugh at or deal with. But yeah, I just like he's lacking kind of like any emotional payoff, like other than like the vengeance and stuff. Like, I think like killing those nameless soldiers at the start and having his, big like ending with the native character, I thought that was so strong. And then you compare that to the finale, even with all the slow-mo and the tonal shift and the payoff of the race ending, and feeling that like, oh my God, it's over and everything has been lost. All of that, yeah, it didn't click nearly as hard as that scene. And again, it's
mm,
two decently good scenes, great scenes. But yeah, again, I think the issue lies with the major never being as big as I think the story wanted him to be, or they made him smaller again to be more of like a faceless, like this is the bad guy of a military government, like whatever, like, So
yeah.
I don't really know what I'm trying to get at, but I do know that
Well, no, I
I
think
100% didn't
to
feel
build
like it was
off
a
of
big
that,
ending.
yeah, like it doesn't feel, like I said, I didn't feel like a satisfaction, but I also didn't feel like the moment itself just didn't feel strong enough. And I think part of it is like he was also like wildly calm and just, and it's also not the guy that with the
He's like, okay,
motivation and the emotional drive to execute necessarily like the whole foundation, but like he just killed Cooper Hoffman, so, like, there's at least some motivation there, but in the moment, for whatever reason, yeah, it just didn't punch either way. Like, I wanted to either feel like the same feeling like I wanted. And like, yeah, he's just not bad enough to like have him be there to be the one that like tortures the kids along the way, right? That like have him do more shit so he just is a little more kind of consistent and relevant, because like they do things where yeah, they like yeah, they intentionally, I can't remember
They
what the kid
shoot him
did,
in the
if he
gut.
also he tried to run away or something, but they're like, "Oh yeah, we intentionally like they letting him bleed out to so none of us do it,"
None of
right?
us.
Like so
And if the
they do
general is the
things
one to
like that
shoot
to
him and
torture.
say that, that would feel like he's
Right.
a bigger
But
bad
have
guy.
him, yeah, be the like let the soldiers just kill everybody just when they're just one and dones, but
Yeah, give
like
him a moment
have
like
him
that.
do the like brutal one. Have him be the one that like executes their friends in different ways. Like it just like you don't feel strong enough, I guess, about Mark Hamill's character either way to kind of get a strong feeling about that.
If
And
this
yeah,
was
he
the Hunger
plays it so
Games,
like kind of flat.
if this was the Hunger Games, it'd be like killing the announcer and not the rich oligarchs we spend the whole time hating for. You know what I mean? Like, Mark
No,
Hamill
I
acts.
don't, but I'll take your word for
Okay, Mark Hamill acts more like an announcer at a sporting game than an actual antagonist, and
Yeah,
only
because he
through
only pops up like one of
and
half of them are
only
gone, and then he's like,
through
"Hey, welcome! It's the final half." Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
only through flashback, which I felt like my criticism was it was like mildly manipulative because it was just trying to show us reasons to care, and expositional dialogue, which again I think was done better than most movies. So yeah, again I think I'm kind of seeing my through line through this conversation better. I think it was Mark Hamill not having not enough scenery, not enough, moments and beats to truly latch on to hating him the way the movie and the main character who has the drive to do this act insisted that they did. But I think like ultimately like let's talk about like I want to talk about the better moments. So I just keep ripping on like why I didn't love it, but I did love it. I just could have gotten a lot further mileage out of this.
A
So
3.5 is in love, dude. On that.
okay, so what I was gonna say though, when you're talking about like let's talk about antagonists, right? Like there's secondary antagonists in this movie. There's some of the walkers are antagonistic, like the um
Mm.
the guy that looks like he's from the Warriors or whatever, with the long hair and the bandana and the camera who flips people off. That guy. That was a great character. At first, I was like, "Oh, this is clearly the asshole or whatever." And by the end, when you realize he is almost the foil to our two main guys, where it's like he lone wolfed it. He didn't give a shit what people thought about him, man. But in that insincere way, because you found out he really did, and he's like, "You got to have your boys, right? I'm part of the Musketeers, right?" Like that was more heart wrenching than some of the deaths in that movie. When you realize that guy
Mm.
is now paying a greater price than any of them, to feel like you're dying alone on that stretch of road, like yeah, I think like in that scene where he kind of baits that obviously queer kid into the fight and the kid dies and he immediately is regretful. He's immediately like, I didn't think and everyone's like, yeah, fuck you. You're now extra
Yeah.
ostracized. Um, I really love that he was probably one of the best secondary antagonists and he wasn't just one note like rock and roll, fuck you. I hate queers. Like, cause that was his whole thing for the first half. Like he's kind of insufferable. And even on that note too, like, the hint that David Johnson's character was like gay in this utilitarian world, right? Like I'm not sure if you read that, but like there's a few jokes about it. And then when he's like, "What about you? You got a lady at home?" and he just gave him a look. And there's a couple behind me in the audience went, "Oh, that yep, yep." And to be fair, I was like, okay, we weren't the only ones wondering if that was it because at first you think it's just like boy talk, like grade A boys being like, "Oh, just something so gay, oh, you suck dick," and then later, when he has that line like you have a girl back home, then you can understand maybe why he's been alone his whole life because especially in this like utilitarian world or whatever, maybe that's super illegal or whatever. So again, the lack of world building did work for some things. The lack of definitive answers did work for me in some ways, and the hints I felt were strong enough. Like again, that scene added a lot of emotional depth and layering and appreciation, and it's way more subtle than a lot of movies these days. So yeah, I don't know. Like I largely love the movie, but I definitely feel like when the long walk, the experience itself it's everything. It's the antagonist, it's the inciting incident, it's the driving force between most conflicts, the logistics of walking and shitting, the logistics of sleeping while walking, like all that. Super strong, but it is tough to put Mark Hamill as this faceless major character, the major, as the main antagonist with the payoff worthy of walking like 1,000 miles and, doing it barefoot, doing it with a broken ankle. Oh my God. Like there's so many scenes that elicit so much emotion. I think that's why I can't, fully say that this was like the greatest, because I don't think I felt strongly about the ending, which is tough when you do that, when you do like a marathon to feel nothing at the end. And again, that's probably the point to a degree, but yeah, I just,
Well,
uh,
the thing that I'm normally an ending guy. I know I've said on before, like your movie can kind of meander along, but if you nail an ending and that's what's stuck in my head and I remember, it like, carries a lot of weight just on my impression, my viewing experience, which I think is what prevented this from going higher for me. But there are so many beats along the way
yeah,
that are so emotional and impactful that it didn't need that. Like, it wasn't that it was consistent build only to fall a little short. There were so many beats. Like, I really broke, like, even like I was intrigued by so much of it, but like I really broke when I can't remember the character's name, but when it was down to the three
the
musketeers and
rabbit.
the dude's bleeding. No, not
Oh,
even
that
that guy, the
guy.
three
Yeah, yeah.
musketeers, because the other guy wasn't one of the musketeers.
Was one of the
But their
Musketeers.
buddy was like nose bleeding and he looked like his, like, the color was faded from his face. You could see he looked like almost like a pale like blue hue. And when he's got his arms around them and like that whole moment, and then him telling them like don't look, don't turn around, and then just that shot again, the two performances side by side, the camera center from, that was a terrible emotion, the camera center frame, so we see as he just kind of fades into the back, he becomes blurry, you hear the warnings, and ultimately he gets shot. But it's the two performances of those guys like that broke me. I was crying at that part. And same thing with the other guy. I want to get his name right because he was also phenomenal. Was Ben Wang.
Yes.
Um,
He was going to be my
he
secondary
honestly dressed
costume.
like he was so phenomenal, and just his like bits and his voice, like I thought just his like accent was really funny.
Yeah.
Like because he had this like I don't even know what
It was like a
American
New
accent it
York
was, but
newspaper
yeah,
boy
yeah,
almost.
something
Like, what are you
like
talking about?
that.
Get it over here, like,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
yeah,
like I thought he was phenomenal, and that Mimo's like bit hit, and just so many beats along the way. When Cooper Hoffman sees his mom and there was that debate like, oh, it's gonna help him. He's gonna have this advantage, but at this point he's had this realization of what he's done to his mother.
yeah,
And so like he runs and she panics, like her reactions, like yeah,
yeah,
Judy Greer is phenomenal. I mean, she's one note kind of in this, but that's like she's in two real scenes and stuff, like three, I guess, but they're all playing on her grief, and she plays that phenomenal. But like how she retreats, because like we got to like he came close to, she's on the sidelines. If he goes off that just a foot, he's dead instantly. So she
oh yeah, I
panics and
forgot about
backs
that.
off and
Yeah,
all of
yeah,
that. Like so it was like that was gut wrenching. And like so there was so many emotional beats just along the way. Like even you said that incident with like the, I don't even want to go if he's schizophrenic or whatever his deal was, but that like bully character, when that kid dies, like that's shocking. And like the very first, that
stabbed in
wasn't
the
the
throat with a
first, was that the
spoon.
first? Yeah, what was that the first kid that died though, or did somebody else die before? But either way, like
Yeah,
I was surprised because when that first person does die and it like blows the bottom of their jaw off, I was like, oh shit, like this isn't just like a quick, like they're kind of masking it or
yeah,
anything like that. Like not everyone is that gory, but like they don't shy away from a lot of that kind of stuff. And so there was just so many moments throughout the movie that elicited such strong feelings from me that I didn't need the ending to hit to still think that that experience was worthwhile, because there was so many moments of payoff for me in there. And that's why, like, again, it's, I don't know, like you talk about like, oh, this isn't something I'd recommend to everyone and whatever. And I see what you mean if you're the kind of person that only watches movies and things like that for entertainment or something, like, then that's fine. This is not a movie that's just baseline entertainment, but it is so much more than that. And I think if you like watch movies, like as an experience to elicit feeling, then this without question, I feel like does that multiple times. Again, even if that ending doesn't hit as hard for you like it did for us. But I think, yeah, there's just so much in there that makes it so worthwhile along the way and things that really stick. I feel like there's moments of that like I don't think I'll soon forget.
Yeah, yeah. There's I feel like I saw a movie recently and like they said it and I was really on the nose and I didn't love it in that movie, but it's like a really, you know, age old thing of wherever you go, there you are, and like you can't
Mm.
get away from yourself. Like no matter where you go, you're still there with yourself. And I'm not going to be happy when I move. I'm not going to be happy when I do the long walk. And this movie kind of does have a little bit of that in there for these characters who, for whatever reason or another, looked to this as the opportunity to do the right thing. It's thinking a little bit about like what are the bigger themes. I think like you talked about it and I've glossed over it, but yeah, visually, the visual storytelling in this, like the way characters are executed in the background or fully shown, a lot of really great choices. Like I said, I got vertigo from a camera angle after truly feeling like I was walking for that first 10 miles and then they show their feet and I'm like, I'm sick of this already. We have another hour to go. Oh my God. The emotions that, I felt like, yeah, again, I think I was right there with you guys. I just was being a bit of a stickler about the ending. Um, and, again, like the lack of payoff for something that made me almost require it personally because I felt so much leading up to it. It was like, especially in the weeks lately where, there's a lot of strong opinions, strong feelings, and a lot of crazy shifts in our current political culture that it's like watching a movie about people trying to change the world and trying not
Mm.
to resort to violence. So there's layers of that maybe that were plaguing me a little bit. But talk about like grand themes, I guess. Like I was going to ask you like what you thought some of the themes really were in this, like as far as like is it as simple as like learning to find beauty? Is it it's worth dying to be true to yourself? Like what kind of big or also too like again after weapons, after school duel, after it ends, a movie that's very similar about just keep going forward no matter what. I was thinking of the movie's themes from those points, as far as like what are we being told? Like I think the experience and the emotions felt in the movie and the cinematography and the choices that were made were some of the top tier filmmaking. But I guess yeah, to close out, I was just trying to think like how would you summarize some of the themes in this? Like I guess I look at a lot
Well,
about
I
like
think the main thing is like there's like an emotional core to it. There's like brotherhood is a big one, obviously, with the two main characters and kind of like, yeah, challenging that worldview. I think if you zoom like way out, what the kind of basic stuff is, it is a dystopian world. It is an oppressive world. There's economic problems and all of this kind of thing. So it really kind of comes down to it's in the vein of I'm assuming Hunger Games, but like yeah, school duel, not quite in the vein of the Purge where like this crime is legalized, but like it's in this kind of grouping of like they do these things as this is a meal ticket. So they get a lot of money and then they get one wish. And so there's a whole conversation that a bunch of the group has earlier on into the walk, where they talk about like, oh, they say we're all volunteers, but have you ever met anyone that says they don't volunteer every year to do this? And it's a state of the world and desperation and desperate people. And I think like, that to me is, I think, more involved in the ending the more I thought about it. Again, like that worldview and even like how you challenge that power. Like, again, that idea that is his dad noble for sacrifice? Like, he could have, all he had to do, like, what would it
well,
was,
it was
like, swear
apologize.
loyalty to the
Yeah.
state or something like that and say he wouldn't do it again or die. And instead of doing that, he dies and gets murdered, killed right in front of his wife and child. And like that is that knowing, like, that active choice, is that noble? And I think the movie and through Cooper Hoffman's character by the end recognizes to a degree that it's not. And like that's when Cooper Hoffman has that regret to his mom, and he tries to apologize and he's so sorry and all of this kind of thing. And but like I don't think the movie, I think, gives us like these characters' point of views on those moments, but like at the same time, like again, the reason I brought up The Witcher 3 earlier is that my instinct is to not do that either. And it's not as easy as that. And I think that's really, I feel like, kind of more on a broad level, like what those kinds of like the narrative themes, if you want to frame it that way. But then again, on the emotional side, those kinds of bits of, like I said, brotherhood. And like thankfully I feel like the movie had really avoided any moments. There was like one part in particular where I thought they were gonna say something that was gonna make my eyes roll. Like when they were talking about, like, you have a brother, and they kind of handle it in an organic way, but like I was just waiting for the line like, "You're my brother
You
now, dude."
remember?
Like,
I
and
was
I was
waiting for
like,
that too.
but they
Yeah,
dodge it, and when it comes back around, it's much more organic and everything that way. So, like, I think those are really the things that stick with you. Like I said, there's a lot of emotion. It's sacrifices so much into it, and desperation, and like what desperate times kind of
yeah.
bring people to do, you know?
And the best parts of this movie that make these characters go through all this is, when you're in the thick of that experience, it's like the brotherhood, the leaning on the fellow man thing. And yeah, I feel like, yeah, that grand theme of definitely like people get into it selfishly. Nobody's there selflessly. They all have their reasons, and it's usually motivated by the money. A lot of them actually don't say it's the money. Like the one guy wants the book. Um, you find out with the rabbit character that, he hates the general just as much for like abandoning him, and his goal is to finally be recognized and seen by him,
Mhm.
which I don't know if I fully also felt like that was a huge payoff, but that scene was beautiful. Like in the way he was like, I'm a machine. I am always fine. I don't have to break down, but I'm just made of flesh and bone. It was like a monologue. It was great. And the
Yeah.
way, he hasn't been sick in 9 years. And of course, on this, unreal journey, he gets sick. And he probably could have beat the boys, is what I felt. And
Yeah.
at the start, when the general goes, good luck, I definitely took that as like, oh, we're going to find out through a trick of a camera angle that he's being fed more rations, or
Yeah, yeah.
like, because I think that's more of a Hunger
I
Games
thought
thing.
that too, and they didn't do that,
No,
thankfully.
and it
I
was the
think that was
opposite.
a
He
really
was
good.
equally driven by hate, and again for Coop, like he was probably more the foil for Coop, because I think in that moment he even got to see this is somebody who has their own daddy issues and their own issues with the general, not the same issues, but they line up in a similar thematic way. But again, it was a beautifully done movie, but in like a lot of wonders too. I didn't even talk about that. Like so many of
Mhm.
these scenes, you forget they're barely even cutting. Like it is people walking probably a mile, getting a lot of
They
coverage.
said something, I think Cooper Hoffman said in an interview they were walking like 15 miles a day on shooting
Oh,
days.
yeah. And again, that challenge is 5 miles at speed 3. So like even if they're a little
Yeah.
slower than that for the camera or whatever, it's like, oh. But yeah. All in all, yeah. I guess as we're talking about, like I said, I was teetering on a 4 and a 3, and that was like maybe a 3.5. But like as I'm looking back, being a little bit more nitpicky, because even I was going to say too, rarely do I say like I enjoyed the journey more than the destination when it comes to a movie.
Mhm.
Only in rare cases.
Same.
And yeah, this one, ironically, this nightmare journey was so good to watch, as far as like from a screenwriting and acting thing. And even my bit up the start, I'm like, oh, we're talking about this summer's not biggest blockbuster, nor is it like an indie darling movie. It's just a Stephen King adaptation with a bunch of relatively low profile actors, walking and talking for an hour and 48 minutes. And man, yeah, great time with it. I think I recommend it to like film people that can appreciate movies, but the hard to recommend part is like, who likes to get a little bummed out, and who can appreciate what this movie is trying to talk about and show on a character level. Because I feel like a lot of movie going audiences don't necessarily go into a movie being like, oh, I can't wait to see what the character arc is like for this guy. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to a movie for this escapism, and then, it's almost a little bit reflexive in some of these movies, like we talked about, like, again, with it ends, you know, having characters that never want to look back, that will go no matter what. Um, and that by itself is the most crushing part of the movie. And again, that's why the character, you know, David Jonsson, was like
Mhm.
definitely, uh, yeah, such a highlight because he was so positive. Anyways, I think I'm repeating myself, but I absolutely loved it. So as we're coming to the end of this episode, and we're talking about the long walk, I have some long walk related questions to pose to you. So I know your moral compass. Should we ever find ourselves walking 800 miles in a dystopic
We will
militant
never.
future?
I'll promise you, I would have been the one guy in the United States of America that would not be volunteering for that.
So question one was, realistically, how many miles before you get your ticket punched do you think you could make it? Like I think I said night one
Okay,
guaranteed
we
I
need to
would hit that
frame
hill and
it into
die.
kilometers, right? So a mile is almost 2. Is that
Yeah.
right?
I'm not even using miles, but I'm going to say like night one when they are like falling asleep on that hill when the like a bunch of them get dropped. I think my
Oh,
best
well, the
physically
hill would
fit
have
self
killed.
hill gets me.
Yeah,
But do you think you
I
could
don't.
make it
And
that
was
far?
that even on night 1 or 2?
That
But
was
either
night
way,
one
yeah,
because
I
it was
would
they start at
definitely
8
wouldn't have made
a.m.
it.
and it's all the way to sundown of the next that day. So that was like 20
Right.
hours of walking or like 18 hours of walking. I could probably get
Yeah,
there.
well, I would die like again. I'd been the first one out easily. I think I did a day. I don't know it in kilometers, but I did a day with Ashley. This was about a year and a bit ago, where I did 16,000 steps, and I got home and I was ready to cut my legs off. But I also, to be fair to me, I was wearing my Croc slip-ons, so I didn't exactly have the best footwear either. But
Yeah,
yeah, no,
not
I would
to
die day 1 without question. I probably, like, again, and I wouldn't have died because like I gave in. I would have been like, "Fuck this, dude." I would have been like, "Dude, can I have some more water?" and grabbed the gun and probably like took somebody out with me. Yeah, that's the way I'm going.
Yeah, it's funny you say that too, because like it's not. I'm not trying to pivot to flex, but like my girlfriend, who's very like, oh, let's go for a walk. I love being health conscious. We left this movie, and I said I'm walk phobic, dude. After watching this movie, I said Shay's gonna hate this because we saw that Taiwanese movie that was about the couple that goes hiking. It's possessed by a spirit of grief and vengeance, and you're like, finally, an anti-hiking messaged movie because it's
Yeah,
hiking.
love that.
So I was like, yeah, Shay and I are going to be team walk phobia after this, but my girlfriend who works from home all day is like, oh, I love going on long walks. And the other day I was like, I really don't. I really can't join you there. And then she's like, well, I gotta get my steps in. And I was like, oh yeah, what are my steps? I always wear an Apple Watch. I clear between 12 to 20,000 steps a day in steel-toed boots on average. So like and that's moving furniture, that's installing stuff and walking around a studio backlot, like making movies.
Yeah,
Um,
if you didn't eat McDonald's and fast food every day of your life, dude, you'd be half the man you are today.
Dude, that's what I'm saying. It's like I think I have the gas because also too watching this movie, the footwear choices. Like if this movie was made for modern audiences that think the political climate's so bad we might as well be in the regressive, movie that the movie set in. I just picture like all these super like fit like millennials and Gen Zs wearing like AirPods, either aviators or pit vipers with like hookah running shoes and like the New Balance compression shorts, and they are just
Hookah.
jazzed.
It's
Yeah,
hookah.
Holka.
Hookah is the.
Oh yeah, yeah. They're wearing their Hoka running shoes and their New Balance compression shorts, and they're just like they're jazzed. They're ready to do this for the gram, and then eventually one of them drops their phone, goes back for it, and gets glacked. And then that's when I don't even think they turn around. I think in this modern equivalency, where there isn't that camaraderie, I think the people in the 2025 version of this movie would just be like, all right, feel that burn. Let's keep it going on the front lines. Five Musketeers, like it'd be like a nightmare spin class, more of a satire. But it was super, super distracted on that one. Okay, so back to the 3 questions. So yeah, you'd be out nearly one of the first. I think I have the
I'd be
hubris
the
to
first
say
one.
I would be. I don't think I'd make it to the top 40, but I definitely wouldn't be in the bottom 5. I think I could be past the bottom 5. That's my
Okay.
hubris. I'm probably wrong. Second question. Like the father of their main character, who you find was executed for enjoying classical outlawed music, if this applied to you, testing your moral fiber here, do you think if the major showed up at your house and you were blasting Nickelback and asked you to repent or die, would you do the same method and die on your principles?
I like to think that I would. No, genuinely, like that's always the choice. Like I brought that Witcher 3 thing up. I played that game through start to finish like at least 6 times, and I still make the choice to get that guy and shit every time because I don't care. I'm like, "Nah, I ain't bound. Fuck this guy." So
So there you
I'd
go.
like
You're
to
like,
think the
I
kind
did
of
this right
I'm
choice.
I'm anti-authority like fundamentally to my core. So again, like I understand it sucks for the family, but I'd like to think that it wouldn't be like a surprise if I were to be in that situation. And I like again, you never know with the gun to your head. It's obviously a different ball game, but I'd like to think I would stick to my principles.
See, as a people pleaser, I also fall in the category of bootlicker. So I think I would repent. I'd
Oh
be like
yeah, I
pre
didn't even bother
Nickelback.
want to turn this
Yeah,
around on you
yeah,
because
you
you'd be
knew.
like, I would have been like, oh my god, I hate Nickelback
I,
anyway.
I would be like, I'll shave my head. Here's my application, sir. I want to be a part of the goon squad that shoots children on the next race. But yeah, okay. So, in third and final question, you probably see this one coming better than I did the ending of the movie. Say you won the long walk, or you had to enlist for it, volunteer as everybody does. What would your one wish be?
Oh god, I have no idea. Well, they had weird parameters. I can't remember what they all were, but like one
It's
thing
mostly
was like
like you can't just buck
you
the
can't just
system.
wish for somebody, which again to me it would be like in that situation like I don't know. If again in that world, I'd like to think I would be more of a like rebellious type. So probably something in that vein of anything I could do to sort of maximize my opportunity there to do something in the system. I
you
feel like
you would
would be
get to the
where I
end,
would
you get
incline.
the thousands of dollars, and then you'd be like, "What do you want now, son?" And you'd be like, out of breath, and you'd be like, "I want to start the Long Walk podcast where I talk about all the
I
Long
am the
Walk
now, no,
contestants."
dude. I would be like, I am the new head of state, bro. I am now in charge and calling the shots, something
Yeah,
to that degree.
there you go. I would say cheeky answer would be a 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom, 1,000 square foot home in the GTA in Canada, because that is dystopically unattainable for today's youth. And yeah, there's my mic drop political statement. But yeah, no, that's a good answer. That's actually a very um, noble one.
See, I
I
think
really don't know.
as dumb as this little exercise was, I think it fundamentally it gave people insights into our base inner selves where I was like I would be like fuck the authority figures and Brandon's like I would just want an apartment and I would join the army if they made me do it.
Yeah, it would be like I would die just to get in the top 40. You're like, I would die right away on my principle. Would you die to follow your beliefs? Absolutely. Okay, listen, look back at me. I'm like, no, sir, let me change my cap around. And then yeah, surely enough, you're like, I would try to fix the system.
Like
And I'm
I'm the
like, I
kind
would
of
just
guy
love to
if
have
they're like,
benefit from it.
this book is banned, that I would buy a copy to have and hide. That's my
Yeah,
energy.
yeah.
So I'd like to think, yeah, I would have all those Nickelback vinyl, hidden in a special spot in
You
my
ever see those memes where
room.
it's like Patrick Bateman showing the business card, but people have like photoshopped out the business card, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
Monster Energy drink cans or whatever. Like, oh, very nice, Bateman. It's like, oh, the cool white Monster Energy embossed can, But in this one, I want to go to equilibrium and have that moment where instead of unveiling like the Mona Lisa behind a fake wall, it's like the discography of Nickelback, and you're like a relic lost to time, but this is illegal, cleric. You shouldn't have this, like that's the very niche
Exactly.
meme for this. But yeah, well, yeah, thanks for
Well, it
breaking
was
down the
nice to
long
have
walk.
you back for sure. And I mean, listen, if you guys are going to fall asleep in the movie theater, for the love of God, put your head on the person you're with, not your seat partner to the other side. Sorry,
Ooh,
Sergio. Yeah.
ooh.
It's what it is. Poor Sergio. It was at the long walk to this old. As soon as the movie started, it wasn't even like the movie. Like instantaneously, he nudged me, and I looked, and this dude was out. And then at one point, Sergio nudged me and sat further back, and this guy was like full on laying towards Sergio instead of his seat partner. So yeah, that
Shame on
guy
the
couldn't
seat
handle
partner
it.
though. You know what I mean? Like
Oh yeah,
I,
yeah, yeah, dude. If my friends are falling asleep, dude, I know it's instantaneously. You're getting waking up. You're going out or whatever. I'm not letting you do that.
we saw the Star Wars re-release in theaters earlier this year, and my girlfriend's brother came with. and he had like a crazy work week. He was up all night. He was wearing a Darth Vader helmet to the release, and it was like a really fun time. But he passed out in said helmet watching the movie. And at first, it was kind of cute because he's between her dad, her, and me, and he's in between the two of his family members. And he was just like slowly, you could kind of hear the breathing on it, but it wasn't so bad because the mask muffled it. But as soon as he let out a snore with the mask echoing it, my girlfriend just like shot him up, and he's like, so
Yeah,
yeah.
sleeping in
So
theaters. That's
long
not
story
the first
long,
time we've
totally
done one
don't
of
sleep in
these.
theaters.
Yeah, don't sleep in theaters. And if you are, put your head on your person you're with, not the random person to your right.
Thanks for listening.